All right, thank you again, everybody, for joining us for today's learning series presentation. My name is Steve Tompkins, and today we're going to be covering fiscal year end for time off and benefits. And I just want to make sure that we're clear on this. We're not going to be covering any payroll things yet. We will have actually a number of series episodes coming up here where we're going to talk about payroll, but today we're going to focus on time off and benefits. Let me go ahead and share my browser here. Now, this one doesn't have a lot of things to see on the employee self-service side. It's more of a back-end thing. What the employees would see for these things are things changing in dates. So as an example, when I go to my time offs here, I would see things up here that might change. Now, it's possible you may have a time off plan that, let's say, does not have a carryover and it resets a balance. Maybe every year they get 24 hours of sick leave or something like that. They would notice that there. But what they would see essentially is if I put my mouse over a time off plan out here, let's see here, it'll show. There we go. Oh. You'll see the net carryover, the accrued, the taken, and so forth. So those numbers will reset for them to see in self-service. So if this plan, as an example, was set to roll over all my hours and then just start accruing again, for the employee, they really wouldn't see much of a difference. They would still see 84 hours available. What they would see if they put their mouse over it is a carryover would show 84 hours, and then whatever maybe accrued at the beginning of the year, the taken would show 0 unless they happen to have taken something on the very first day of the plan year. And then the reserved would be anything that maybe was submitted in the future, so that may stay the same. And the plan would be anything that was approved in that year. So they're not going to see the actual rollover happen per se, but they may see the numbers change slightly in self-service. Same type of thing with benefits. When I get over to benefits, I only have one plan on the employee, but what I would see is perhaps the effective dates change. So if he went through an open enrollment and selected some new benefits, these plans would fall off this view here. It's showing, because I'm showing active plans, and then the new ones would be visible here. So the employee would be able to see the old plans by simply clicking where it says show inactive. And as you can see here, I can see older plans that have expired already, but they're not actually going to be processing something. There's no request on their side that's going to show that type of thing to happen on there. So where do we see this happening? And that's, of course, in the admin side. So I'm going to go ahead and start over here under the admin side. I just got a different tab open here. So here I'm looking at that same employee that I was looking at in self-service, and you can see the start and end dates here. Now, we're calling this fiscal year end. That could be any time during the year. So you may have a time off plan that is tied to their anniversary, and in which case that fiscal year end for the particular employee is going to be, whatever their hire date is, and that might be different for any other employee depending on whatever your situation is. So it may happen at any time. But in my situation, as you can see here, I have 12/31 as the end date here. You may have one that actually is your company's fiscal year end date. Perhaps it's October 31st or something like that. But that's what we're talking about here, is what happens to these plans when the end of the year for the plan comes up. Same thing with benefits. So we're seeing these end dates right here. Now, I can do this individually if I would like. If I'm looking at a particular employee and I want to see what's happening, let's say with this one sick leave plan, I can come into here and I can cause the system to do the fiscal year end by simply accruing past the end date here. So if I go ahead here and accrue, and let's just say I type in 1/1/2023, it's going to do the fiscal year end for me. Now, what does that mean? Now, from this side, there's really only one visual that you're really going to see, and that's that this active flag got unchecked because this plan is no longer active. It is in the old plan year because I've accrued into the next plan year. But the other things that are down here, they all are just locked in place here. And you'll see like the carryover, accrued, et cetera, all just locked in place. And what I'm now going to see when I come out here is here's that new plan year for that sick leave plan. So what happened? Well, based on the rules of my plan, different things may happen. In this particular situation, I have a carryover of 24 hours. So whatever your rule is for your carryover and so forth, that's what's going to happen there. Anything that was accrued in the previous plan year it's going to be on the old plan year. I'll be able to see that if I hit show inactive, but it's going to zero out this one. So here's last year's accrued, and as you can see, now it's reset to 0. Nothing has been used so far because I have nothing used as of the 1st of January 2023. And of course, the net is 24. So a couple of housekeeping things that you'll need to be aware of. Let's say I needed to make a correction here. Perhaps I've closed the plan year and then somebody calls me up, sends me an email and says, I forgot to put down some sick leave at the end of December and they want to put it down today. Well, if I just simply go and add that to, let's say, December 30th, I'm just picking a date out, it's not going to affect this 24 hours of carryover because this has already happened. So I will not be able to do that. If I wanted to come out here and do sick leave and just say 12/30/22, let's just say all day there and out sick, it's not going to have any impact on the plan that already has carried over. So yes, it shows this 8 hours. However, that 24 is still here because it's already done the carryover. All right, it's not going to affect that. Now, what I could do is I could come into here, I could manually override or do an adjustment to adjust that carryover, or I could delete this. That will make the old one active again. Now you'll see there's that, you may have noticed before it said 24, now it says 32. The net shows 16, so now it's done that calculation. And again, I can accrue into the next plan year. Again, this one is now inactive, and there's the new one with the 16 hours of carryover. So you can update the plans for the old plan year. What you would need to do is, it's an individual type situation that you need to do this. So if you do a mass accrual, or if you have the system automatically accruing for everybody, then you can't just say, oh, I need to go back and adjust 15 employees very quickly and easily. You can do some type of imports, but you still need to go through and delete the new year, let it calculate, and then reaccrue. So that's doing it one employee at a time. I can make that adjustment. And the same thing would happen if they had an outstanding request that perhaps the manager was just sitting on for a while, and then all of a sudden, middle of January, something like that, they approved it. It again is not going to affect the carryover or anything in the new year if it's in the old plan year. I'd have to go through and delete and then accrue again. So how do I do an accrual for, let's say, everybody in the sick leave plan, or let's say a number of plans? That's going to happen over in my settings. So I have another tab open up here with my settings. For time off, it's under HR administration. Again, I could just type time as an example in my settings, but I'll just show you where that is right here under time off plans. And here you'll see the different time off plans I have set up in my system here. I could choose one or more plans and I can accrue them however I like. So let's say that sick leave plan, I'm going to assume it's this one here called sick new. You'll notice I can check this box right here. Maybe it's this one. I'll just accrue both of them just to show you here. And this accrue button became active in the upper right-hand corner. You may have noticed before it was kind of light here. I can't click it, nothing happens. But if I check these, then I can tell it I want to accrue. And you'll notice it's told me the 2 plans I've checked. And I could type in whatever day that I would like to accrue to. I could type it in, I could use the calendar, whatever works best for me. All right, you'll see this button here that will go to today's date. I could go forward. Now, if I've already accrued, let's say I'd already accrued through the end of August, and then I went back and I wanted to accrue to August 15th, it's not gonna let me do that. It's not gonna do anything because I've already accrued the end of August. So just be aware of that. It does show the accrual date here. You'll see 10/20, well, obviously 2 years ago, 10/21/20, but I would not be able to accrue before that date right there. But here, let me just do that. I'm gonna do 1/1/23, and I'll hit the accrue button. So this will go through anybody who's got that plan. It's now accrued them, and it put that date right here. So I would not be able to go back to, let's say, 12/15 to accrue back a couple of weeks or something like that, because it's already accrued through there. So that's doing it on the setup. I could do one plan, multiple plans. I could do all plans by checking this box, whatever works best for me. And that's going to do the carryover, the end of the year for that there. Now, you may also have a task that does your accruals. I don't believe I have one configured, but it's possible that one has been set up for you. So again, you can search, simply type the word task, and it's the task scheduler down here. These are for different settings on the employee and time cards and so forth. But this is where it's going to be down here under task scheduler, system configuration. All right, you can see these here. I have some one-time ones, but let me just show you what it may look like. I'll go ahead and add one here. Let's just call this time off. And so you might have something here where you calculate it on a weekly basis or bi-weekly or whatever, monthly, something like that. Let's just, I'll set one up for a weekly. And it would look something like this. You might say you wanted to accrue at 7 a.m. on every Monday. All right. So this is what it may look like. Obviously, everybody's setup is a little different, but this is an example of a weekly setup for this. And then what you might see is down here that you're going to do something in the system for time off plan accruals. And then the different plans would be checked off in here. So you may have one or more. Now, again, your setup is obviously unique to you. You may or may not have this configured. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to support. They'll be able to help you out with this, is let you know if you have one set up. But this would explain if you go in and you already see that it's done the rollover for you, or it's accrued for an employee and you don't remember doing it, you probably have something like this configured. So I'll set one up. Let's just say for these sick plans. And so what this would do is every Monday at 7 a.m., it's going to accrue those 2 sick leave plans using the current date of whatever it is on Monday. So like if it happened yesterday, would it on October 10th and obviously the 17th for next week and going forward, it would do those things. Now, in my particular situation, you may remember I just mentioned that I can't accrue backwards. So mine would actually kind of skip this until January because I've done it on the 1st of January already. But that usually doesn't happen. But just be aware, if you go in and you say, how did this accrue? I don't remember accruing it. I didn't go in and do it manually or use the group accrual or the plan accrual. It's probably something in here. So go to your task scheduler and check that out. If you don't want to search, it's way down here towards the bottom, task scheduler, third from the bottom here. All right, so that's how that would work there. And you can check the status of it here. Mine has not run. That's why it doesn't have the last run time. But you'll see it does show me the last time these different tasks ran. Obviously, it's been several years. But what I would see is, as an example, I might see next Monday at 7 a.m. that this ran, and then every Monday after that. All right, so that's time off. And just wanted to pause real quick and mention we do have a Q&A. If people have any questions, you can go ahead and use the Q&A on that. I don't know if there's been anything so far, but we do have a couple of our support team in there answering questions. Again, if you have any questions on this stuff, of course, you can reach out to support. Also, within the admin, you do have the help in the upper right-hand corner. This will give you some help on this information. So if you're curious, you want to explore on your own, perhaps in your sandbox, you want to set something up, you'll notice that as I click into here, it talks about how this all works. Recurrence, the status, the start time, etc. It's all in here, talking about how this all works. You can also reach out to help. So help at CriterionHCM.com or call us. So benefits fiscal year end. How do we do that? What's involved with that? So there's a few things when we're talking about benefits fiscal year end. So I'm looking again in self-service, just so you can see what a benefit plan might look like for an employee. Today is obviously in the middle of the plan year here, 1/1/22 to 12/31/22. So this dental plan as of today is going to keep on going until this expiration date out here. And what happens at the end of that plan year just depends on how your current system is configured with different benefits. Now, it's possible that, maybe it's just a benefit that you're just going to end after this year. Maybe you're switching carriers or no longer going to offer a benefit, something like that. That's just going to automatically end. So it's going to automatically, in my situation, if that was a case where I was no longer offering this dental HMO, it would just stop at the end of December. All right, so this contribution, et cetera, would just end. Same thing with any deduction that it's linked to, that would just end. All right, so that's the easy, way to do that there. What happens, if you want it to roll over or they go through an open enrollment or something like that? Well, that's where there's different things that happen. Now, we haven't done our training on open enrollment, our learning series on that. I believe that's in 2 weeks, but I'm going to cover some of it right now. So again, I'm going to just show you over here. If I go to benefit plans, you'll see the same information where the expiration is. But let me go up here to benefits. So if it's just ending, I do have some benefit plans configured in here. And here's that dental plan. Now you'll see, interestingly enough, it does say the year end date is 12/31/20. Well, you might be saying, well, wait a minute. It says 12/31/22 on the plan. How does that happen? So what happens is, in my situation, I have an open enrollment configured. And so this employee went through and they selected dental HMO for the new plan year. And it then used that year end date, but it incremented it by a year. So it, he probably went through in 21 and then in 22 and, maybe again this year. So it automatically incremented it up to the latest, almost current year. And if I do another open enrollment and this plan is offered, I don't need to come in here and change this date. I can leave it as is, and it'll just increment it to 23 in that example. All right. It all depends on open enrollment being configured, of course. Also, part of this, and again, we'll get into this when we get an open enrollment. I'm going to get to my end here of my benefit plans, and you'll see where I have my different rates. And I know mine's not super up to date here. Yours probably would have more in your configuration than just, a 3 or 4 year gap. So you'd probably see like 1/1/19, 20, 21, 22, and you can see the different rates for each plan year here. So as part of that prep for open enrollment, again, we'll cover that. You would add in the rates for next year. So I've already got them configured here, but you would just simply hit new rates and put in when they're effective and update the rates. That's part of it. You have to put in the new rates for the new year. You don't need to go again and change that year end date. You just put in the new effective date right there. And you would do that to your various plans. Now you can import this stuff on a per plan basis. So I could go through and I could have a spreadsheet in there. In fact, I shouldn't have closed it. Let me just get to that end there. You'll see there's a button right here to import. I could download a template and I can import this information. Again, you can reach out to support if you need help on that. Maybe you did that in your initial implementation, so maybe you're familiar with that, have the old templates left over for your current year or something like that. You could reuse those, obviously changing the rates, well, assuming they change, but changing the rates and importing in those new amounts. Otherwise, what you would do is simply edit them. Let's say that this one went up from 25 to 30. Just type in 30 and hit update. And maybe this one went from 30 to 35, etc. I'd put in the different rates in here like this. All right, very easy to do that. It obviously not too bad for one plan, but you can see why the import might be useful if you had 20 plans. You don't want to probably edit each individual row in there. So the import might be very useful for you. And then you would just simply save that. Now, the other side of it is having an open enrollment out there. All right, now, I don't have one for the current year, but that doesn't really matter. I'm going to show you how this works. I've got this one here called medical enrollment, just so you can see what this looks like. Here's the plan group that's going to roll over. So if you want it to roll over, there's a couple of things you need to do. First off, you need to add that certain benefit group into here and include the plan. So if I wanted that dental one included, I know this is an older one, but let me just do that. If I wanted that dental included here, I'd have to select dental here, give it a name, and add that plan that I want rolled over. So there are some steps that I need to go through. Not sure what that is. I'll just include it. Doesn't really matter. All right, so this is going to tell it that this is a selection that somebody can go through. During enrollment, they can select this dental plan. That would be part of that fiscal year end. Save my change there. And then you'll see this other thing here called auto rollover. What this does is it says, if I have it enabled, I'm not sure if it is yet, I won't let it load here, but if it's enabled, it allows me to say, okay, if they're in this basic medical plan, what do I want it to roll over to if they don't go through open enrollment? All right, so somebody, opts out of open enrollment. Maybe you have a form or something that just says, I want to roll everything over. You can say, all right, basic medical plan is going to go to basic medical plan. More advanced medical plan is going to go to more advanced medical plan. Dental is going to go to dental, and Cobra is going to go to Cobra. Now, you might say, well, why do I need to do that? Well, what happens if you change carriers? Maybe you're now offering, something that's a little different. Basic medical plan is now called bronze medical plan. You want to just roll everybody over to that one. That's why we do that. We make you select the plan. What you also need to do is configure the different options. And what do I mean by options? So for that basic medical plan, employee only is going to roll over to, and I just tell it what it's rolling over to. So you see how that works. All right. So I have to go through and do that. Now, this is where it does get a little bit, time consuming as part of that open enrollment configuration. You need to do that. But once it's in here, the nice thing is that it will do an auto rollover. So if somebody does not go through open enrollment, it'll automatically, if they're in the basic plan, roll them over to the basic at the employee level or whatever it is that they chose there. So I'm just going to quickly do this. This one has two options. I've got a level of coverage as well as a tier of coverage. So I have those other options there. I'm not sure about this Cobra Dental. Look like that's the same thing. Now you might ask yourself, do I have to do this every year? The nice thing about our system is we do have what's called cloning. So if you have this configured for last year, perhaps you're able to just clone that over, changing the dates and maybe making some updates to the verbiage and so forth, but you can roll that over. But this will automatically roll over anybody who does not go through open enrollment. Otherwise, if they go through open enrollment, it will just expire the old plan, let's say on 12/31, and then start the new one on January 1st. All right. If they don't go through open enrollment and we have the auto rollover turned on, it'll do the same thing. It'll just say, okay, you were in the basic medical plan at employee only, and now you're going to roll over to the basic medical plan at employee only. So that's how that'll work there. Now you could also do it manually. If you didn't want to go through open enrollment, or you were doing it through, paper enrollment, you didn't want to use our system, you had a paper system, or maybe you want to import that information or something, you could go to the employee and say, oh, I need to add this dental plan here for 2023. And where is it? Right there. I don't remember what he had. I'm just going to do that. And this should, as you can see there, do 1/1/23 to 12/31/23. So there we go right there. Now you'll notice that I did not have the contribution and premiums there. That's because I didn't calculate. Again, this is a system task that you could configure so it calculates these perhaps on a daily or weekly basis to make sure that this doesn't happen where I have zeros here. This happens when we're doing open enrollment, but I added this manually, so I do need to recalculate and put down, I can use today's date, or I can go to the future. Let me just use today's date for simplicity. Oh, I can't because I did 1/1. Let me just recalculate to 1/1. There we go. And you'll see there the different rates. You may remember I changed it to 30. So there we go. So you can see the rate change happen. Now, I still see this one because I do see future dated plans. When I'm looking at the benefits of the employee, I don't see expired plans that are, past dated. So I would see the one that expires next year in here. All right. One other thing I wanted to talk to you about is that task for that stuff. So if you wanted to automatically recalculate, so I didn't have to remember to do that, or maybe just as a catch-all, just in case you forget to do that, that calculation when you're adding the plan to the employee, you can add a system task for that. So again, I'll come here to the task scheduler. I'll call this benefit. calculation. All right, so let me just do this one daily. I want to make sure that I have that enabled out there. So I'm going to do it daily at 1 a.m. and I'm going to say every day. And you'll see I can then say I want to do a system task called benefit plan calculation and select the plan or plans that I would like to do here. So I'm just going to select them all, have it recalculate all of them and hit update. I could have also selected, one or two or just a handful. Maybe there's some that are expired that I don't need to recalculate or something like that. One thing to remember is if you do add plans and you have a system task out here to calculate daily or weekly or something, you do need to add it in here. We don't automatically add new plans to the task scheduler, and we don't remove old plans. So if this BC BSM PPO1 is no longer active, there's no reason to calculate it. It's not like it's going to bog the system down, but you don't care anymore about that one, you can always remove it. But we don't look at let's say the expiration dates or something like that and say, well, you're no longer using it, so let's not calculate it. All right, so I've done that, and I'll go ahead and save this out here. Again, it's never been run before, so I don't see anything, but that is that daily calculation of benefits. All right, again, just to reiterate, please feel free to reach out to our help team, our support team out there, your customer success managers out there to help you out, and make sure you understand this. If you have any questions about it, you can, of course, use the help menu on there, and it will show you things like about benefits and so forth in the help center. However, you may want to just talk to somebody. So phone number, email address, do that right there. And what do we have going on into the future out here? So our next session is in 2 weeks here. Let me just change my slide over to show that. There we go. Our open enrollment overview, which I've kind of covered today, but I'll go in more depth and everything in 2 weeks there. So in 2 weeks, same time, should have already received an email probably with the invitation in there, but we do have that out there. We also are scheduling out, as I mentioned at the beginning, our payroll year-end series. It's part of our learning series, but we're going to be very focused on US and Canadian payroll. How do you calculate, make sure the end of the year is right and everything like that. So after this open enrollment one, I believe we have 4 year-end payroll ones where we're going to get in depth in that stuff. And then we'll get back to non-payroll stuff like HR and training and so forth. So again, if you have any questions, our Q&A, I think we're going to leave it open for another minute or so. If it didn't get answered, we will reach back out to you. But if you have any questions, you'll see our number there at the bottom of the slide, and you can always email us using that email address. So thank you very much for your time today, and we'll talk to you again in 2 weeks.